Hello everyone, now we open on the kind of scene that doesn't make headlines but absolutely should. A glass-walled HR office sits sterile and quiet in a polished mid-rise building in Arlington, Virginia. The receptionist smells faintly of lilac hand lotion, tapping acrylics on a keyboard without looking up. Through that glass, a woman waits, back straight, hands clasped, throat scar glinting under the fluorescent light like a seam of silver stitched through her skin. She's early. She's always early. You can't run logistics convoys through ambush zones and get away with bad timing, and yet, you probably won't survive this next 15 minutes emotionally intact, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and your local time in the comments. I want to see where my fellow night owls and morning warriors are tuning in from. Now, relax, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get into today's story. She's wearing a navy blue blazer, pressed slacks, polished shoes. Her DD-214 is ironclad. 12 years Army. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Bronze Star. Defense Meritorious Service Medal. And a scar, long, narrow, curving from the left side of her throat to the base of her collarbone. Surgical. Ugly. Proud, she doesn't hide it. She doesn't explain it. She doesn't owe anyone that story unless they earn it. The receptionist buzzes. Ms. Durand? They're ready for you. She stands. Smooth. Calm. You know that movement, the one that comes from muscle memory, discipline etched into bone. Inside the conference room, 2 people sit waiting. A man in his 40s, business casual. A woman in her 30s, blazer too tight at the shoulders, eyes flicking down immediately to the scar and then away. Have a seat, the man says, too quickly, already uncomfortable. She does. She meets their eyes. She speaks clearly, though her voice has a rough edge, not from nervousness, but because her vocal cords were partially damaged when shrapnel tore through her neck during a base attack outside of Kandahar. They don't ask. They won't. He starts the interview. Generic questions. Tell me about your leadership style. Walk me through a time you had to adapt under pressure. What makes you a good fit for this company? She answers them all, steady and precise. Examples from her time coordinating airlifts during a blackout. Negotiating with local Afghan contractors using a translator who barely knew the word for delay. Getting her squad out of a bottleneck when GPS jammed and the map got soaked in blood. The woman HR rep shifts in her chair. Her smile stays fixed, but she's looking at the scar again. She's not hiding it well. You can smell the discomfort, and then the interview is over. Thanks for coming in, the man says. We'll be in touch. She nods once. Thank you for your time. She walks out. No flinch. No hurry. Back into the elevator, past the receptionist who doesn't even look up this time. The moment the glass door shuts behind her, the 2 HR reps exhale like they've been holding their breath through a thunderstorm. Jesus, the woman says, tone low, did you see that scar? She sounded like she had gravel in her throat. Yeah, I know she's a vet, but would she be client-facing? The man grimaces. She's probably got PTSD or something. I'm not trying to babysit someone who might snap. The woman snorts. She looks like she snapped already. Laughter. Small. Mean. The kind of laughter you hear when people forget the walls have ears, or when they assume no one who matters is listening. But someone else is. The phone on the table vibrates. Unknown number. The man picks it up and mutters, yeah, give me a sec, before realizing it's still on speakerphone. The voice on the other end is low, gravelly, older, clipped, commanding. This is General Michael Harrington, Pentagon Joint Chiefs Liaison, retired. Who am I speaking to? There's a silence so sharp it slices the laughter clean off the table. This is Brian Harker, I'm with, Strategic Client HR, and who else is in the room? The woman leans forward, pale. Jennifer Moore, same department. The general doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. I just heard every word you 2 said about Sergeant First Class Isabelle Durand. I was trying to contact her to follow up on her application to our Veteran Advisory Board, and it seems I misdialed. But lucky me, I got to listen to something much more revealing. Dead silence. She saved my goddamn life in 2011. We were pinned down on Route Copperhead. She rerouted 2 convoys, called air support, and carried 2 wounded Marines to safety while her own throat was hanging open. You think she's not fit to face clients? He pauses, long enough that the silence becomes a scream. You just made the most educational phone call of your careers. Click. The line goes dead. The phone is still warm in Brian's hand, but his fingers feel cold. Jennifer hasn't moved. Her jaws slightly open like she's waiting for someone to call cut on a scene that got way too real. Way too fast, Brian tries to speak. That couldn't really be, Jennifer cuts in, whisper sharp, that was General Harrington. Joint Chiefs. You don't forget a voice like that. And then reality rushes in like a dam broke. Brian shoots to his feet. I'll call legal. Maybe PR. We can frame this. Say it was a misunderstanding. Jennifer stands, but her voice is brittle. You think you can PR spin laughing at a veteran's war wound? Downstairs, Isabelle Durand doesn't know any of this. She's walking across the plaza, squinting slightly into the sun. The day is clear, a breeze tapping the flagpoles. A small child points at her throat as she passes and whispers, "Did she fight a dragon?" The mother gently pulls him away. Isabelle smiles, just a little, 15 minutes. That's all it took to shatter her chance. Not because she lacked skills or qualifications, but because 2 people couldn't look past a scar. Back upstairs, Brian is pacing. Okay, maybe it's not a disaster yet. Maybe he was bluffing. Jennifer is already searching her phone. He's not bluffing. He's listed on the advisory board. Isabelle's name is right there. Pending candidate. Brian stops. You mean she was interviewing here while being considered by the Pentagon? Jennifer just nods, slow and stunned. And then the phone rings again. Not the desk phone this time, Jennifer's personal cell. She doesn't recognize the number, but something in her gut tightens as she answers. A woman's voice greets her. Calm. Collected. This is Colonel Dana Cross, Office of Veterans Advocacy and Integration. We received a concerning report regarding one of your interviews today. Jennifer freezes. The line is monitored. Recorded. She's being given a chance to respond carefully. I apologize, Colonel. We were unaware anyone was listening to our private discussion. Colonel Cross doesn't react to the excuse. That's clear. But the recording was clear as well. Jennifer, floundering, she wasn't rejected formally. We hadn't made a decision. You made your decision out loud, the Colonel interrupts, her voice steel wrapped in velvet. And you made it based not on qualifications, but on physical injury and unfounded mental health assumptions. That is not only unethical, it's legally actionable. Brian tries to jump in, speaking too close to the phone. Ma'am, we are committed to supporting veterans. I'm sure you'll commit even more after the press release tomorrow, the Colonel says. The General already submitted a full report to the Defense Transition Task Force. Silence. Jennifer sits back down. Her knees gave out. Brian just stares at the floor. Outside, in a quiet cafe across the street, Isabelle sits alone, stirring tea she hasn't touched. Her phone buzzes. It's a text, from a number labeled Harrington. General M, you handled that with more restraint than I would have. I've got this. Sit tight. MH, she smiles. Her fingers hover above the screen, and then she types, "Thank you, sir." I wasn't going to waste energy on them. It's not the first time she's been dismissed before anyone knew her story. Not the first time the scar had a louder voice than her own, but it is the first time someone with weight, real weight, picked up the fight on her behalf before she even swung a punch. Back at headquarters, the building is starting to whisper. Word spreads faster than wildfire in office corridors. Someone from finance texts someone in compliance. Someone from compliance sends a group chat screenshot to someone in IT, and somewhere in that tangle of forwarded screenshots and clipped audio from a speakerphone mishap, something else starts to form, a reckoning. An internal email circulates from the CEO. Subject line, urgent HR review, immediate action required. But the rot goes deeper than that. Isabelle wasn't the first veteran to walk through these doors. And she definitely wasn't the first to leave feeling judged. Brian gets pulled into a meeting with legal. Then with diversity and inclusion officers. Then with a VP who looks like he's already preparing a scapegoat strategy. Meanwhile, Jennifer receives an official HR complaint from someone she's never even met, a quiet employee in data entry who heard her make a joke last month about ex-military types being too intense for teamwork. Turns out the call from the general didn't just reveal a moment. It exposed a pattern, and patterns. Those have consequences. The next morning, Isabelle gets another call. This time, it's from someone different, a woman with an elegant, almost soothing voice. "Miss Durand? This is Evelyn Ramirez, Director of Public Affairs at Strategic Client. I want to offer our sincere apology for your experience yesterday." Isabelle listens. Calm. Still. "We've placed the individuals involved under immediate review, and we're launching a veteran-specific hiring initiative in response." Isabelle's voice, when it comes, is low but iron-edged. "You're not calling because you're sorry. You're calling because you got caught." Silence. "Then, you're right." And Isabelle hangs up. In her apartment that evening, she opens her laptop and begins typing. A simple post. Just a few lines. No names, no rage, just truth. "Had an interview today. Got rejected before I sat down, my SCAR answered their questions before I did. 15 minutes later, a general called them back. Sometimes, justice has a good memory. Within 2 hours, it's shared by 200 veterans. By midnight, it's at 12,000, by dawn, it's viral." She doesn't say the company name. She doesn't have to. The internet sleuths do it for her. But Isabelle isn't interested in revenge. She's got her eyes on something else now. A seat at the table where policies are written, not just where judgment is handed down. And somewhere, in the Pentagon, General Harrington reads her post and smiles to himself. The morning sun crests over the Potomac as Washington buzzes with its usual churn of politics, coffee, and barely hidden chaos. But in one corner of the Defense Department's advisory board offices, a phone sits still, already having done more in 24 hours than a dozen white papers ever could. General Harrington walks in at 0800 sharp. He doesn't need the title anymore, retirement looks good on him, but old habits die hard. He's got a fresh-pressed shirt, a tablet tucked under his arm, and a purpose in his stride. He taps on the conference table. "Someone get me a call with Isabelle Durand. Now." His aide, a young lieutenant with eyes still too hopeful, raises an eyebrow. "Sir, she's not on schedule until next week." Harrington doesn't look up. "Move her up." 2 minutes later, he's on the line. "Sergeant Durand." "General. You made quite the impact yesterday." "I didn't do anything," she replies, voice as calm as ever. "You did." "No," he says, sitting down, "you walked in, stood your ground, and didn't let them break your silence. That takes more guts than shouting ever did." Isabelle is quiet for a beat. "So. What now?" "I've spoken with the task force chair. We're extending you a formal invitation, not just to join the advisory board, but to help shape our civilian transition protocol." She breathes in. "Is that because of the post?" "No. That's because of the work you've already done. That post just reminded everyone to pay attention." She nods slowly. "Then yes. I'm in." And just like that, a door opens. But behind the scenes, the company from yesterday is unraveling faster than expected. Strategic Client's PR department tries a soft launch, a social media statement about renewed commitment to veterans, a LinkedIn post about rethinking inclusion. Too late. The screenshots of the HR transcript, anonymized by veterans who wanted to protect Isabelle but still demand justice, have already made their way onto forums, Reddit threads, and Twitter feeds with titles like "This is why vets don't trust civilians." At a coffee shop in Colorado Springs, a retired Navy EOD tech reads the post aloud to his son, in Florida. A Gold Star mother sends the post to her daughter, just discharged after 6 years in the Marines. In Seattle, a hiring manager rewrites her company's interview training manual overnight, but back in DC, something quieter is unfolding. General Harrington's office receives a letter. Handwritten. No return address. "I was one of the 2 in that room. I can't undo what I said, but I've requested reassignment to a role with no hiring authority. I'm also donating my annual bonus to the Wounded Warrior Project. Not asking for forgiveness, just trying to make it count." No signature. Just a line at the bottom, "We failed her. I won't fail again." Harrington shows it to Isabelle. She reads it slowly. "What do you think?" he asks. She hands it back. It doesn't undo the scar. But it means someone felt it, even just for a moment. Then she sits with that. Doesn't rush it. Doesn't try to win. Just acknowledges the ripple. Later that week, Isabelle takes her place on the advisory board. She's quiet in the first meeting, listening more than speaking. But when they reach the section on employment transition protocols, she clears her throat. And every head turns. She speaks plainly. No more token interviews. No more diversity checkboxes. No more pretending a "thank you for your service" cancels out silent judgments. We need training. Not for veterans, for you. For civilian HR reps, recruiters, execs. You want to hire us? Learn how to see us. Silence, then someone nods. And another. And another. By the end of the meeting, a new initiative is born, Operation Insight, a training series for civilian recruiters led by veterans who've lived through rejection, judgment, and silence. Isabelle's scar isn't mentioned. But it doesn't need to be. It's there, reminding everyone what it cost to get here. The next week, she gives her first panel talk. Small room. 40 chairs. Packed with hiring managers and corporate leads. A PowerPoint clicker in one hand, she begins with a slide that's just one photo. Her uniform, drenched in sand and blood, snapped the moment before she was medevaced out of Kandahar. She doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't ask for pity. She just says, "That's me on the worst day of my life. And I still showed up to your interview 15 minutes early." No one speaks for a long time. Later, a woman from a tech firm approaches her. "We just updated our vet hiring page. Would you look at it?" Isabelle opens the link. It's better than she expected. Clear, direct, free of fluff, but one thing's missing. Where are the photos? The woman looks confused. Photos? Of your vets. Not stock soldiers. Real employees. Show their scars. Their wheelchairs. Their service animals. If you want to hire us, stop hiding us. That night, the company updates the page again. Across the country, ripples become waves, but not everyone is cheering. Some say it's too much. Too aggressive. Too demanding. One talk show pundit sneers, "We're just supposed to give them a job because they got hurt." Isabelle responds the next morning, not with a press release, but with a photo on Instagram. It's her scar, close-up, no filters, caption, "No one said I deserved a job. I just deserve a fair chance." That scar didn't ask for special treatment. It just asked not to be disqualified before I said a word. The post goes supernova. Even the Pentagon shares it. Somewhere, in an HR office very far from where this began, someone takes down a mirror, wipes it clean. And sees themselves a little more clearly for the first time in years. 2 months later, the world has moved on, as it always does. Viral stories fade. Attention turns to new scandals, new causes, new tragedies. But Isabelle Durand isn't chasing the spotlight. She's chasing change. Her schedule is relentless. Early morning task force meetings, late-night Zoom calls with HR departments across the country, training seminars squeezed between flights and federal advisory sessions. But she doesn't complain, because every time she steps into a new room, every time she faces a line of wide-eyed, nervous HR reps or CEOs who still call it shell shock, she knows the work is cutting through. She knows, because of the letters. They come in bundles now. Handwritten. Typed. Emailed. DM'd, one from a young Air Force veteran named Troy. "I didn't think I'd ever wear a tie again. Every interview felt like they saw my prosthetic first and nothing else. But I watched your video. Rewrote my resume. And last week, I got hired. First time anyone shook my hand without flinching. Thank you." Another from a hiring manager in Chicago. "After your talk, I realized I'd screened out 2 candidates just this month for presentation concerns. One had a stutter, one had a limp. I called them back. We're interviewing both tomorrow. You changed more than policy, you changed my eyes." And then one more, anonymous. Scrawled in tight, careful print, "I was in the room that day. The one who didn't laugh. I didn't speak up either. I've thought about that every day since. I've enrolled in night classes, veteran transition counseling. I want to be better. I will be better. You deserve that. Isabelle keeps every letter. Doesn't read them all at once. Just one per night, like a ritual. Proof that this scar, this thing that nearly ended her, has now become her strongest voice, and yet, she's not untouchable. Far from it, one afternoon, she walks into a corporate summit in Atlanta, hundreds of executives, wall-to-wall networking buzz, and someone at the registration desk gives her a once-over, eyes resting just a second too long on her throat, then a smile. Polite. Dismissive, caterings down the hall. Isabelle smiles right back. I'm the keynote. The woman flushes, but says nothing. 2 hours later, that same woman is standing in the back of the conference hall, arms folded tight as Isabelle takes the stage. I want to talk about the pause, Isabelle begins. Letting the silence breathe. The 2-second hesitation. The glance. The sidelong look. The twitch in your mouth when you see something that doesn't match your idea of what professional looks like. She walks across the stage, slow and steady. The crowd is completely still. I've seen that pause in interviews, in elevators, even in checkout lines. I've felt it more times than I can count. But what I want to ask you today is simple: what are you actually pausing for? She lets the question hang, because I promise you this, if that pause is enough to cost someone a job, it's long past time we retrain your reflexes. The room erupts into applause, not out of politeness, but because truth, when spoken clearly, is undeniable. Backstage, someone from a Fortune 500 whispers, "Can we book her for a full series?" Someone else, "Get legal on the phone. We need a new vet policy draft. Now." But Isabelle doesn't celebrate. She just exhales. Because the applause isn't the win. The win comes when those same people change their hiring filters, their onboarding scripts, their unspoken biases. After the summit, a woman approaches her, mid-40s, polished. Wearing a company badge. She looks emotional. I just wanted to say thank you. My sister was a Marine. I never understood why she hated interviews. I do now. Isabelle nods. Thank you for saying that. Then, unexpectedly, the woman leans in. She had a scar, too. Not on her neck, on her hand. From an IED. Used to cover it with a glove. I always thought she was being dramatic. Now I realize. She was hiding it to be heard. And Isabelle just whispers, "I understand." Later that night, back in her hotel room, Isabelle opens her laptop. Another inbox full of messages. But one stands out: subject line, follow-up, initial interview. It's from Brian. He's no longer at strategic client. The company quietly let him go, officially for unprofessional behavior, but everyone knows the real reason. Jennifer resigned the following week. The board launched a full internal investigation, and the CEO publicly pledged a 3-year plan for veteran hiring transparency. Isabelle opens the message. Isabelle, you don't owe me a second of your time, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, but for being the kind of person who made you feel like your service could be erased by a single glance. I've spent the last month volunteering with a veteran shelter. I've had more honest conversations in that basement than I had in 10 years of executive leadership. If you're willing, I'd like to learn. Really learn. I'll be attending your next seminar. Anonymous in the back row. Brian. She doesn't respond. Not yet. But she marks the message unread, so she'll remember. In a small corner of the country, a man is trying to build a second chance, not for his reputation, but for his soul. And in dozens of other corners, HR leaders are calling meetings, rewriting standards, launching listening sessions. The old rules are bending. New ones are forming, and in all of them, the same name keeps coming up: Isabelle Durand, not the woman with the scar. Not the veteran who went viral. Just Isabelle, a voice that made the pause impossible to ignore. The calendar ticks forward, as calendars always do. It's been almost a year since that interview, the one that never really ended, because it started something much bigger. But the world still spins. Bills still come. And for Isabelle, the mission is far from over. She walks into a small community college classroom in rural Ohio. Not because it's televised or packed with CEOs, but because a local counselor emailed her, saying, "My students need to hear from someone who looks like them. Who's been knocked down and stood back up." It's not a big event. Maybe 20 people. A couple are veterans. Most aren't. There's one young woman in the front row with a tremble in her hand and a notebook filled with margin doodles. Isabelle sees the fear in her posture, the way her eyes dart like she's waiting to be dismissed. So she skips the script. Instead, she pulls up a photo. The one from Kandahar again. This was me at 23. I had plans. A roadmap. A belief that if I did everything right, things would work out. Then a roadside bomb blew my throat open, and silence became the only language I trusted for months. She doesn't rush. People see this scar and assume trauma, weakness, burden. But they never ask what it taught me. That silence can be strength. That listening is a kind of leadership. That resilience doesn't always roar. The room is still. No phones out. No whispers. The girl in the front has stopped shaking. After class, she comes up slowly. I was going to quit school. I didn't think people like us get jobs. People like us? Isabelle asks gently. The girl half laughs, half chokes. The broken ones. Isabelle kneels slightly, looks her dead in the eye. We're not broken. We're battle-tested. That moment, quiet, intimate, unseen, matters just as much as any viral post. Because ripple by ripple, the tide turns. Back in DC, Operation Insight continues to grow. Other veterans join the speaking roster. A former Army translator with a burn-scarred face. A Navy pilot whose PTSD used to derail every interview. A combat medic with a stutter and a smile that disarms whole boardrooms. They're not packaged or polished. They're real. And companies are finally listening. Isabelle sits in on one such session, Fortune Tech's quarterly leadership summit. She watches as a VP of recruiting stands up mid-session and admits, publicly, that she's been filtering resumes for culture fit, which too often meant no visible disabilities. Another exec chimes in, we've been choosing comfort over courage. That ends today. After the session, Isabelle finds herself beside a glass wall looking out over the city. General Harrington steps up next to her. He's got a coffee in one hand and a folder in the other.
We've got offers coming in, he says. TV appearances. Panel keynotes. One of the networks wants to do a documentary. Isabelle smiles faintly. That's not what this was ever about. I know, he says. But people need stories like yours. Real ones. Not wrapped in ribbon or scrubbed for comfort. She sips her tea. Maybe one day. But right now, I want to keep showing up. Unannounced. Unexpected. In rooms they don't think I belong in. Harrington chuckles. You've always been more dangerous without a spotlight. Then he turns serious. You know, when I first saw your file, years ago, I thought, this one's going to make waves. Not because of medals or missions. But because you didn't flinch when you got hit. People think strength is loud, she says. But it's often the quiet ones who carry the heaviest truths. That night, she flies home. Her apartment is small. Lived in. Books stacked on tables. A dog named Milo greets her with the kind of enthusiasm reserved only for those who return after changing the world but never act like they did. She feeds him. Pours a glass of wine. And finally, sits at her desk. A new message is waiting. Subject line, speaking request, Department of Veterans Affairs. She opens it. Isabelle, we're launching a new training series for VA staff, especially those in hiring and discharge support roles. Your voice is the one we need. The one we trust. Would you consider helping us rebuild from the inside? We don't need a hero. We need a human being who's been through it and didn't turn bitter. Let us know. She closes her laptop, smiling. She'll respond tomorrow. Tonight, she opens her notebook, a real one, with pen and paper, and writes a single line across the top of a clean page. My scar is not a weakness. It's my resume. The story could end there. But you know better. Because someone out there, maybe someone watching right now, is carrying a scar, too. Maybe it's visible. Maybe it's hidden. Maybe it's not from war, but from life. Rejection. Silence. Loss. Doubt. And here's the truth you don't hear enough. Your scar does not disqualify you, your voice, even if shaky, still counts, and your story, even if it's messy, is still worth telling. So if someone ever tries to look past you, through you, or around you, let them, because they weren't ready for what you're here to do, but the rest of us, we've been waiting for you.